This dream is from February 22nd, 2024. It is 5:07 a.m. It's still dark outside. I just woke up from a dream that I actually thought was real. As soon as I woke up and knew that it wasn't real, I asked God to bring it back to my memory, and then I grabbed my phone to document it. My youngest sister and I lived in a house together in the city with our husbands. Around dawn, when it's still dark outside, I got up to go into a different part of the house. I don't remember why, maybe to use the bathroom. I reached to open the door to the hallway, and when I did, my sister's ex-boyfriend's mother was there in her robe, coming out of one of the bedrooms. Apparently, she and her husband were there as well. She startled me and I jumped back a little because I was caught off guard. I wasn't expecting to see her there at our house. So she and I veered into my sister and her husband's room. And my sister was sitting up in their bed and her husband wasn't there yet. He was probably traveling from work. So this woman and I exchanged pleasantries, and she asked for a hug, which I politely gave. The hug was very guarded, however. There was a lot of air left in that hug by both her and myself. Anyway, she finally got around to the reason that she was even coming out of the room and going into my sister's room. She needed to borrow some money. And I don't remember the amount, but it wasn't a lot. But neither my sister or I had cash on us. And for some reason, our funds were intermingled. So anyway, we discussed it and decided that she could use our Cash App card to buy what she needed. So we gave her the card. She left the house and got what she needed and then came back rather quickly. My little sister and I were upstairs in the bedroom talking when the lady returned. Only a few minutes had passed since she had been back in the house. We were all standing in the doorway of the room. I heard the door chime. That lets us know the door just opened. That went off. Even though it could have been any one of our family members, I immediately had a bad feeling and my senses were heightened. I turned to the lady and asked, "Did you remember to lock the door back when you came in?" Her eyes got big, and that told me everything that I needed to know. It turns out that she didn't properly secure the house because she was so focused on whatever that thing was that she needed the money for at the time. There were definitely intruders in the home, but this time we had a plan that we immediately put into place. There were special spaces built into the home for us to hide and take up weapons. There were also other parts of our plan that we built in strategically to disarm the intruders. One example of this is there was some kind of recording or voice box in the wall. I could hear the woman telling one of the intruders that there was a hiding space in the floor or behind the door. When they tried to get access to it and open it, they couldn't. Since the intruder couldn't get in, he decided to just shoot several times through the door. And just when he thought he'd gotten whoever could have been hiding in there, he heard a woman's voice. It was either mine or my little sister's. It was either pre-recorded or coming through a speaker, and we were on a microphone somewhere else in the house. This aggravated the intruder because the voice was taunting him. So he shot through the door a few more times, but then realized that the voice wasn't coming from behind that door. He tried following the voice because As he walked through the halls, he could hear it through the walls. This led him to the area where we were waiting with weapons and more tactics to confuse him and protect ourselves. By then, the males in the family had made it to the house. I remember seeing my dad and another male family member, I don't remember which one, but they were moving boxes and furniture while the intruder was trying to tiptoe around doorways and corners to get a better angle at which he could shoot, not knowing that this was another part of our plan, and he was falling for it. It was another great distraction. Long story short, our plan worked. We disarmed the intruders and made them leave the house, running, without anyone being killed. Not one of us was harmed, and not one of them were killed. I call that a success. Once we were sure that they were gone, we all came out from our places. I immediately went to re-secure the entrances of the house. Before you reached the front door of the home, we had a closed-off porch entrance. I went out there and started repairing and rearranging what the intruders had damaged and left in disarray. A lady was walking by and took notice of me out in our porch area. There was one or two little girls with her. At first, the lady was trying to talk to me through the screen porch about religion. I think she was a church lady. I was very obviously busy and did not want to engage her conversation, but she was very pushy and kept insisting. So I began to speak to her in a tone of rebuke while mimicking the antics of a black Southern Baptist preacher. At first, she was shocked by it, but then she was definitely, very visibly annoyed. One of the girls that was with her found a hole in our screen and began to veer into it. But I quickly turned my attention to her and began to rebuke her as well and send her back to the other side of the enclosure from which she came. And it worked. The lady stopped talking to me about her religion. The girl retreated backwards, and I never had to touch either of them to get it done. To anyone who was watching, I'm sure this was a hilarious scene to behold. However, I was only slightly joking, and the lady was certainly not entertained. Just then, while the lady was about to express her thoughts on my antics, I looked up from what I was doing and saw a huge two-tiered mushroom cloud of smoke mixed with fire go up in the air. "Look!" yelled one of my nieces or nephews. They had made their way out front to where I was. "What is that?" they asked. That caught the attention of the lady and the girls, and they looked back. Just then we saw another explosion and cloud of smoke mixed with orange fire. These explosions were really far off. We couldn't hear them. We could only see them from where we were standing. I knew exactly what it was. I tapped one of the kids and told him to go get Pawpaw, my dad. In more of a hurry than before, I began to repair and now board up our enclosed porch area. The lady continued standing outside of the enclosure with the intent to distract and annoy me, but I wouldn't let her. I continued to work. The kids returned with my dad and a few more of the adults. Everyone jumped right in, including the kids, and started helping me to secure the porch enclosure even more than it was previously. As the lady saw us making progress, she became even more of an agitator by reaching her hand into spaces that we were working on closing up and trying to come through entrances that had not yet been boarded up. By then, I had become absolutely fed up with her, and so I chose violence. Every time she would reach in, I would find something to hit her with. I didn't care if it was on her arm or on her head. I wanted her to leave us alone and go away. We were almost just about done when I finally looked up at the lady and said, "Why have you spent all of this time standing here and harassing me instead of getting those babies to safety? Aren't you supposed to be a religious woman? Don't you realize what's coming? Just then she looked at me and her eyes changed. She looked at the little girls and then looked back at me. Then she grabbed their hands and they hurried off to wherever they needed to be going. Then I went back to finishing what I was doing. We were completing the last part, which was the door entrance. And just then a thought came to my mind. Why are we re-securing and patching up this breached building instead of just leaving? And then I woke up. I don't have an interpretation to give to you for this dream. So you have to go to Yah for that. You have to go to God for that. I would encourage you to pray and ask for the guidance of the set apart spirit. I would encourage you to ask for understanding, ask for wisdom, ask for discernment. I will say this about this dream. To me, it's clear in terms of the mushroom cloud, the intruders, religion, and different things like that, closing up the holes. But we need to be preparing for what is definitely coming. And I will leave it at that. Shalom.